Prozor radne sobe turskog pisca Orhana Pamuka gleda na Bosfor, liniju razdvajanja Evrope i Azije, koja je i realno i metaforički prisutna u knjigama ovog svetski priznatog autora. Kada su sredinom 80. godina prošlog veka iz te sobe izašli njegovi prvi romani, zavladalo je oduševljenje razigranim postmodernim pričama o bojama i mirisima orijentalnog života, o paradoksima potrage za identitetom i kontradikciji između islama i modernosti, o želji da se bude deo Evrope, a istovremeno i strah od toga. Onda su početkom novog milenijuma krenule kritike, a zatim i javna osuda pisca zbog političkih stavova izrečenih u intervjuima evropskoj štampi. Tada su u Turskoj njegove knjige javno spaljivane, a bio je pokrenut i sudski proces. I dok u svojoj zemlji Orhan Pamuk doživljava slavu i polemike, Evropa i Amerika nazivaju ga najvećim evroazijskim autorom našeg doba i oduševljeno pišu o čudesnom kombinovanju orijentalne pripovedačke tradicije sa elementima evropskog modernizma. Rođen je 1952. u Istanbulu, gde je studirao arhitekturu, a diplomirao na Institutu za novinarstvo. U svojoj 22. godini aktivno se posvećuje pisanju. Njegov prvi roman, Cevdet Beg i sinovi, objavljen je 1982. Slede Tiha kuća, Bela tvrđava, Crna knjiga, Sneg, Istanbul, uspomene i grad. Srpski prevod romana Zovem se Crveno autor je lično promovisao tokom dvodnevnog boravka u Beogradu kao gost izdavačke kuće Geopoetika. Knjige Orhana Pamuka čitaju se u višemilijonskom tiražu na preko 40 svetskih jezika. Krunisane su prestižnim turskim i evropskim književnim nagradama, a prošle godine o ovom piscu se govorilo kao o ozbiljnom kandidatu za Nobelovu nagradu.
You are deeply interested in the history and the culture of your country. So, do you think that the author is defined by the geography of his birth?
Of course, it's inevitable. And then, unfortunately, just like our families, we never choose our nation, geography. It's just given. Just like our families, we have to like our country, our nation, and after a lot of efforts, finally we succeed in doing that. In fact, all writers have, or I would say most writers have, like me, troubled relationship with their history, with their country, and it's a good thing. It was Adorno who said that it's a good morality not to feel at home.
And to what literary family do you feel to belong?
Of course, I belong and I identify with the grand European art of novels. I am a novelist, first of all. I consider myself a novelist. That's a great invention of European culture, along with post-Renaissance painting and orchestral music. These artistic forms lie at the heart of Europe. And me, as a Turk, outside of Europe, or at the margins of Europe, trying to grab that art, to learn that art, to master it and make it on my own, and then define my Turkishness, my country, through this Western invention.
Critics like to say that you write about Oriental topics in a modern, that means European way.
I'm a Turk. I don't consider Turkey as Orient. Orient is the way, is a word West invented to, in a bad way, to I wouldn't say denigrate, but to just find exotic my part of the world. Yes, I write about my country through the fiction through the art of the novel, which is a Western invention, but that's what also Tolstoy and Dostoevsky did. And at that time, Russia was far, far away from Europe.
In your novel, My Name is Red, that has been published recently in Serbia, there is a story about murder, there is a mystery, philosophical puzzles, meditation on art. So is that book a kind of your response to Umberto Eco's Name of the Rose?
It is like Eco's book, interested in history, but then my concerns are different. I wanted to tell a story in which ways of seeing the world, that is, painters' way of seeing a world, be a sort of a distinction line between modernity, West and Europe, and in my part of the world, you may call Orient, East, or Istanbul, Ottoman Empire. My Name is Red is about Islamic painting. It tells the story, a 250-year brief story of Islamic painters who did paintings inside books. As we all know, Islam and painting are problematical. Figurative painting in Islam is not allowed, while on the other hand, there were some 250 years where major Ottoman, Persian, Mughal rulers asked for painters to do paintings. How these painters painted? They did miniatures, pre-modern things. How did they conceive and represent the world? What are the philosophical implications of this? I wanted to tell a story about this. Also, between the age of 7 and 22, I wanted to be a painter. When after the age of 30, I had managed to establish myself as a Turkish novelist, I always wanted to write about painters because I understand when they drew a line, how it feels. I understand when your hand draws and your mind is surprised by what your hand is doing. What is this mysterious, essential feeling about art? That it is as if someone else is drawing the line for you. So I wanted to write a novel about these things, and I begin to develop. Since these issues were a bit hard and philosophical, I also put my family history, my childhood, when my father was away, for this or that reason, my mother, me, and my brother, the three of us, a protective mother protecting the children. So I put that my childhood story, which took place in 1950s in Turkey, to 1590s in Turkey, carried it back, and made it a bit personal. But then again, I thought maybe this is not enough. It's philosophical, personal, but it should be readable. I gave 6 years to this book. I wanted it to be read. So I also put a murder mystery in it.
Yeah, so what's the function of the murder?
Murder mystery is the part that I believe in less. It's just makes the book readable. But at the heart of the murder mystery lies this idea that does everyone has a distinctive style, character, personality? You know, they teach us this in all schools, that in West there was an invention of distinctness of a human personality. Each human being after Renaissance, after modernity, is different, and we respect that. And we associate that with style, with uniqueness. A person is a developed mature artist if he or she has a style. Is it inevitable that we are different, or our characters are invention? Is modern personality invented by Shakespeare and West, or in every part of the world there is personality? These issues are discussed in the book.
Biz üstelik daha da yasak, daha da tehlikeli bir şeyle Müslüman şehrinde resimle uğraşıyoruz. Her nakkaşın içinde tıpkı İsfahanlı Müsavvir Şeyh Muhammed'de olduğu gibi suçluluk duymak, pişman olmak, kendini herkesten önce suçlamak, nedamet getirip Allah'tan ve cemaatten af dilemek için kuvvetli bir dürtü vardır. Kitaplarımızı suçlular gibi gizli gizli ve çoğu zaman da özür diler gibi hazırlıyoruz. Bizi dinsizlikle suçlayacak hocaların, vaizlerin, kadıların, şeyhlerin hücumlarını peşinen boyun eğmenin, bu bitip tükenmez suçluluk duygusunun nakkaşın hayalini hem öldürdüğünü hem de beslediğini öyle iyi biliyorum ki.
People die in your book. They die because they believe in the book that has to be written and illustrated, or they die because they don't believe in the book. Do you think that the book could be powerful as a weapon?
One of my books, in fact, this one, The New Life, begins with the sentence, I read a book one day and it changed my whole life. Yes, I believe in the power of books, but then it's stupid to die because of that. I think people kill each other not because of books, but because they have anxiety of this, anxiety of that, and have paranoias. My characters in My Name is Red begin killing each other because they are afraid that they will be punished by the state, they will be punished for changing the tradition, so forth and so on. When there is no liberty, when there is no freedom of telling what you think, then everyone gets nervous and bad things, killing starts. That's how I look at it. In my part of the world, people take books so seriously that they may kill each other for that. But on the other hand, that's also related to urge to protect yourself, also a strong unhappiness, a strong feeling of dissatisfaction with the world in such deepness and length that if you read a book, you want that book to change the whole world.
So what is red? The color of life or death, of love, of painting?
Life is composed of all that. There is no single solution. I'm sometimes very pessimistic, then my mind is black. Sometimes I'm easy, then I see things in a blue way. Since I wanted to be a painter, colors always mean something. There is a lot of color symbolism in Islam. I know it, I do not believe it, but I use it in my own way. My books are not focused on one single issue, love, death, meaning of life, then posterity, what will others say, or family problems, jealousy. These are my subjects. Art, devotion to art and the meaning of it. I've been writing books for 30 years. This is my 31st year. But then what's the point of it? Maybe one day they will all be forgotten. What I did, just like these Islamic painters, no one pays attention to their work. They are, even in Turkey, are in the museums, but not much displayed. What is the point of giving so much energy and dedication to art, to books? We know in the long run, in history, it's all vain, but we do it. Why? These are my questions. They are related to love, jealousy, understanding, searching for depth and meaning in life. These are my concerns.
My Name is Red is also a beautiful love story, and then I think it's a happy love.
Yes.
So do you believe in happy love? Are you optimist?
Since my books are intellectual, I am not afraid of happy love. Happy love tends to be melodramatic and unconvincing because books are not written in a nice manner. My stories are about life, but they do not imitate life. They are alternative versions to life to make us think about the meaning or details of life. The point about art and literature is that it should not necessarily copy life as a photograph, but it should be a sort of a dance about the life we lead and give depth, meaning to what's happening to us.
Yeah, because in European literature, love is always a lost.
Yes, this association of love with death, of losing, absolute, demanding that love be absolute and eternal, is also related to our insecurities, anxieties, about our loneliness, that the girl should be the only girl, that the man should be the only one, and it should be eternal, is convincing because we understand the fright of loneliness and anxiety of being left alone. But on the other hand, life is much more complex. I tend to write long books because if I have a strong idea, then I counterbalance with another idea and continue like that.
I like very much your female characters because they are very modern, though they live in the 16th century. Your female characters are very emancipated and open-minded.
My character in My Name is Red, Shekure, is some of her based on my mother. Even she has my mother's name. But then, as you said, this is not a realistic historical novel. It has lots of realistic details that I search in archives, in books, in past, in history, from history books. Then there is also, I would say, called postmodern side to it, funny side to it, because there are lots of modern situations. But the woman in the book, which is based partly on my mother, partly imaginary, of course, is also right in the middle of the novel, talks just like a person whispers, talks to the reader. I like those moments in which she's manipulating, handling life. In order to make my woman character, and at that time it was not even easy to go out of the house for upper class Ottoman woman, I made her manipulative, scheming and plotting things, arranging, looking for a new husband now that her husband is dead, and hushing and scolding and occasionally beating her children. And she began to get more and more strong and more real. I'm happy that she's the strongest character in the book.
There is often Orhan in your books. And,
yes, as I told
your alter
you,
ego?
Yeah, it's the child, the mother, and the two children in this book is based on my personal life, on my childhood. So the Orhan in the book is someone like me, and his brother Şevket, who beats him occasionally, is someone like my brother. But the Orhans in my books, yes, a sort of alter ego who also compose and pay attention to the book that we're reading. I always develop a character who is also concerned about the way we read the book he is in.
So how do you nourish your imagination?
You don't nourish your imagination. It's like an automatic clock. It works all the time. And it's good that it works. It's happiness that you have an imagination that you're happy with. That you don't have to do anything with your imagination. Even if you are in a dark room, it works all the time and makes life pleasant. The interesting thing about being an author, that you pay attention to your imagination and follow the films that it is shooting all the time. And what I do in life is, in fact, pay respect and attention to products of my imagination and produce them as books. I'm happy that so many people read in the end.
Yüzü açık bir kadını görmek, onunla konuşmak, onun insan hallerine tanık olmak biz erkeklerde hem şehvevi hem de derin manevi acılara yol açtığı için dinimizin emrettiği gibi kadınları, özellikle güzel olanları nikahlanmadan hiç görmemek en iyisidir. Şehvi hisleri mecburen tatmin için kadınlar aratmaz, güzel oğlanların dostluğunu aramak tek çaredir ve sonunda bu da tatlı bir alışkanlık olur. Frank şehirlerinde kadınların yalnız yüzlerini değil, en çekici yanları olan pırıl pırıl saçlarını, sonra boyunlarını, kollarını, güzel gerdanlarını, hatta anlatılanlar doğruysa güzel bacaklarının bir kısmını ortada bırakacak bir şekilde dolaşmaları, erkeklerin de bu yüzden önlerinin sürekli kalkıp olup utançla acılar sızlar içinde zar zor yürümeleri cemaati elbette felce uğratmıştır. Frank yavurunun Osmanlı karşısına her gün yeni bir kale kaybetmesinin sebebi budur.
In your novel, White Castle, you pose the question of identity. So there is a relationship between a Turkish master and his Venetian slave, who exchange not only clothes but identity. So what was the point?
The point of course, again, a very Turkish point, that the same question, eternal question we Turks, but now the rest of the world too is asking, are we still traditional? Are we still Turks? Do we belong to pre-modern world? Are Europeans so different from us? Is there a common human something that we can share? Are they, the Europeans, so negative of us? Or are we a bit alike? Of course, the idea of exchanging identities and putting that in a historical context, that of East and West, is a little of development of this old idea of doubles, what the Germans call doppelganger. Dostoevsky wrote a book called Double the Other. So did Nabokov, Paul Hoffman, so many others, that we are thrilled, scared, and we see in our dreams a person who is exactly like us, who follows us, who in the street corner we may one day come across and be scared. This is a human fancy, but I think an eternal human fancy. In the White Castle, I took this literary tradition and placed it on the eternal Turkish East-West problem. Here we have the doubles, one of them from West, one of them from East, and then the Turkish gets the European Renaissance man and tries to learn from him the secrets of the Western civilization in a very childish, very naive manner, as we all Turks do sometimes, and tries to westernize himself through him.
My name is Red is also a research of identity, of national identity of Turkey. And the White Castle is also a research of identity, but very personal.
Yes, they are search for identity, but I should add, always when faced with West, because that's Turkish history, this anxiety of losing your identity when faced with Western civilization. These are eternal Turkish questions, and they're turning out to be global questions after 9/11. That how Islam be modernized? Does Islam need to be modernized? How West made Islam as a sort of enemy while it shouldn't be, and it is not. How modernization was somehow achieved or failed in Turkey as a power, as an imposed thing, and can it be achieved by American bombing or killings? Is that right? These the issues of traditional Islamic or any Western society when faced with the power of westernization, military power, economic power. What happens if we lose our tradition fast? We get sad and angry and we react. Do we have to throw bombs or what should we do? These used to be Turkish questions for some time no one cared about, but unfortunately after 9/11 turned out to be world's issues. Perhaps that's why there is so much interest to my books as well.
You're not an engaged writer, but at one moment you couldn't resist, and you wrote a novel, Snow, which is political novel.
Yes. In my youth, very early, 25 years ago, I began writing a political novel, but then there was a military coup in Turkey. I thought I cannot publish it. But the idea of writing, looking at the spirit of my nation, this time through politics, once, first and the last time, I wrote this Snow. The idea was to go to the poorest, remotest, most provincial part of Turkey and perhaps live there a bit, go back and forth and try to understand the most provincial part, most dispossessed people and represent Turkey's political problems through that book. That was Snow, which will be published here next year, I understand.
Yes. There are Turkish and Kurdish nationalists, and there are ethnic and religious conflicts, and there are violence and murder. So is it a good passport for Turkey entering the European Union?
I don't know. I make my political statements out of my books. I want to see Turkey in European Union. And just like you, a Dutch journalist friend of mine said after reading Snow, Orhan, I know your political desires. You want to see Turkey in European Union. But after reading your Snow, I'm not sure about that, he told me. And I said, well, I will be happy if my books, which I take care much more seriously, would contradict my fanciful political thoughts. I care about my novels. Politics comes afterwards.
But what was the reception in Turkey?
Of what?
Of Snow.
Everyone was a bit upset, but they didn't ban the book. The book was read, sold a lot of copies. I didn't have much political problem with Snow.
But you had political problem last year.
Recent political problems because of a statement I made about the Ottoman Armenians. What happened to them? Why can't we talk about what happened to them in Turkey? Why is this subject a taboo? That put me in problem, not the Snow, not the novel. I am always in trouble, not with my novels, but with what I say to journalists, so beware.
Yes, you told in an interview that 1 million of Armenians were killed during the First World War, and that 30,000 of Kurds are dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and my point was that in Turkey we have to be able to talk about these taboos. This is not only a grave human drama, horrors had happened, but also in a civilized modern country which is knocking the door of European Union, we have to be able to talk about these blind spots. We have to have freedom of speech on these issues. We have to feel free about talking about these issues. That was my point.
Yes. One of your heroes in Snow says, I will quote, not exactly, I'm proud of the part of me that isn't European. So I'm proud of things that are childish and primitive and cruel. So what
I
should I
always
say?
want to identify with my bad characters. In My Name is Red, also in Snow, I force myself to identify with people with whom politically or personally I totally disagree with. The fun and joy of writing a novel is to understand the person you may in normal life hate most, but make that person charming. That is the provocation, that is the depth, that is the meaning of writing novels. If I write novels about only with people who are like me and make them charming and make the rest of the world stupid and unreasonable, then that's not fun to write novels. The whole logic of art of the novel, as I see it, is to represent someone who's not like you fairly. Give your will, do your utmost to understand someone who's not like you. What the Western civilization, even we Turks, call political Islamists, Islamic fundamentalists, is now evil. Let us try to understand this man through novels. What Europe and West now calls forgotten nothing, Islamic painting. Let us try to see the world through what they have achieved, what they did. These are the challenges of writing novels, and that's why I write novels. Not only because of this, because it's also fun and this or that, but these are the philosophical, political energies that will always go into making of my novels.
But as a novelist, you also have to have your part that is childish and cruel.
Yes,
don't you?
and it's very difficult. Now that I had some political problem, novel writing is, for me, being a childish, irresponsible person who plays around with major issues in a childish way, but with such logic that after the devotion of the child, just like a child who plays with his toys, there a meaning tries to emerge, a new meaning, a new way of seeing things. But in order to do that, you have to take the world seriously like a child, but play around with it like a child. But once I was in this political problem, I developed a very important, serious persona, which I hate. And I could not be in the mornings a child and in the afternoons important, political, devoted, serious person with responsibility. That was the problem. I think perhaps that's why I'm always in trouble outside of my books when I get angry about something and say the unsayable. But essentially, I am a novelist. Politics always is a problem, comes outside of my books. And I write novels essentially because I feel an instinct to live in the imaginary world, to play around with the real world like a child, and continue to invent. Politics and other things are secondary.
Belki şimdiye kadar anlamışsınızdır. Benim gibi adamlar için, yani aşkı ve acıyı, mutluluk ve sefaleti eninde sonunda ezeli bir yalnızlığın bahanesi haline getiren benim gibi keder erbabı için hayatta ne büyük sevinçler olur ne de büyük üzüntüler. Başkalarının ruhu bu duygularla alt üst olduğu vakit onları hiç anlayamayız demiyorum. Tam tersi, bu duyguları derinlemesine yaşayanları fazla fazla anlarız. Anlayamadığımız şey ise o sırada kendi ruhumuzun içinde gömüldüğü tuhaf telaştır. Aklımızı, gönlümüzü karartan bu sessiz telaş hissetmemiz gereken asıl sevincin ve üzüntünün yerini alır.